Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to do something pretty ambitious. We're going to build a living thing right from the ground up. Seriously, we're going to start with the absolute smallest non-living bits and pieces and see how they come together step by step to create a real functioning organism. So, let's get started.
So, to really get a grip on life, you have to appreciate how incredibly organized it is. It's like this amazing ladder of complexity. You start at the bottom with simple atoms, right? Those atoms link up to form molecules. Then those molecules build the basic unit of life, the cell. And it just keeps going. Cells form tissues, tissues build organs, and on and on and on, all the way up to the entire planet. And what's so cool is that each step up this ladder creates something totally new, something much greater than just the sum of its parts.
And this leads to a really big question. You and I, we're made of the same basic stuff, the same atoms as a rock or the air we breathe. So what's the difference? What's the magic spark? What are the rules that draw the line between something that's alive and something that isn't?
Well, it turns out it's not some kind of magic, but actually a set of rules. Biologists have nailed down 6 key characteristics that all living things share. Everything from being made of cells and having DNA to needing energy and reacting to the world around them. This is basically our checklist. If we're going to build something that's alive, it has to be able to do all of these things.
Okay, first things first. Like any good construction project, we gotta gather our tools and materials. Before we can build a living cell, we need to understand the non-living chemicals it's made from. These are the absolute raw materials for life. So at the very bottom of our toolkit, we have to figure out how atoms even stick together. And they basically have 2 moves. In what's called an ionic bond, one atom literally steals an electron from another. The 2 atoms that have opposite charges, which makes them stick together. But the real workhorse in biology is the covalent bond. This is where atoms share electrons, creating a much stronger, more stable connection. This sharing is what builds the very backbone of all of life's most important molecules. And what are they building with all these bonds? They're making what we call the 4 major biomolecules. You can think of these as the 4 main types of building materials for any organism. We've got carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. Each one has a very specific and very vital job to do. First up, we need fuel. That's where carbohydrates come in, things like sugars and starches. They provide fast, easy-to-access energy. They're basically the gasoline that gets the whole cellular machine running. Next, we've got lipids. You probably know them as fats and oils. They play 2 huge roles. They're like the long-term battery packs, storing energy for later. But just as important, they form the waterproof membranes that create the boundaries of a cell. They're literally the walls of our factory. And then you have the workhorses, proteins. I mean, these things do almost everything. They act as enzymes that make chemical reactions happen. They provide the cell's structure. They transport materials around. You name it. They're the actual machinery inside our factory. And finally, the blueprint. How does the cell know how to build all those amazing protein machines in the first place? Well, all of the instructions are stored in nucleic acids, like DNA. It is the master plan that directs the entire construction project. Okay, let's recap. We've got our complete toolkit now. We have fuel from carbs, walls from lipids, machinery from proteins, and the all-important blueprints from nucleic acids. We have all the non-living parts we need, so what's next? Let's actually bring them to life. This is the moment. It's time to take all those parts and assemble them into the first true level of life, the cell. This is where chemistry flips the switch and becomes biology. It turns out all life on Earth, from the smallest bacterium to the largest whale, uses one of just 2 basic cell designs. You've got the simple prokaryote, like a bacterium. You can think of that as a kind of open-plan workshop. And then there's the much more complex eukaryote, which is what plants and animals are made of. These are like highly organized, departmentalized factories. So what makes these eukaryotic factories so darn efficient? It's all about having specialized departments, which we call organelles. The nucleus is like the main office, keeping the precious DNA blueprints safe. The mitochondria are the power plants, generating energy for everyone. And in plant cells, you have chloroplasts, which are like solar panels, capturing energy right from the sun. Okay, our factory is built. The walls are up, the machines are in place, but nothing's happening. It's dark and silent. A factory is totally useless without a power source. So how exactly does life manage its energy budget? The secret is something called metabolism. That's just a fancy word for the grand total of all the chemical reactions happening inside an organism. Think about it. You eat food to get energy. That's your metabolism at work. It's this constant dance of reactions, some that build things up and need energy, and others that break things down to release it. So where does all this energy come from in the first place? Well, for most life on Earth, it starts with the sun. Plants have this incredible trick called photosynthesis. It's basically a two-step process. First, they capture sunlight and store its energy in these little temporary battery molecules. Then, in the second step, they use the juice from those batteries to build stable, energy-packed sugar molecules, using just carbon dioxide from the air. And if we zoom right into one of those chloroplasts, you can see this amazing transformation happen. Light and water go in, and as a byproduct, oxygen gets released. Yep, the very oxygen we're breathing right now. Then, that CO2 from the air gets pulled in and used to build sugars. Plants are literally making food out of thin air and sunlight. It's incredible. Okay, so plants build the sugar. Fantastic. But how do we, and plants for that matter, get the energy back out of it? Well, we use a process called aerobic respiration, which is basically photosynthesis in reverse. It's a three-stage assembly line that carefully breaks down that sugar molecule to release all the energy stored inside. And this is where the magic happens, the big payoff. That sugar molecule goes into the mitochondrion, the cell's power plant. It gets taken apart piece by piece, and at the very end of the line, a huge amount of a molecule called ATP is produced. ATP is the universal energy currency of the cell. It's like cash that the cell can spend to get literally anything done. All right, we've done it. Our factory is built, it's humming with power, it's a living, breathing unit. But to really be considered alive and for life to continue, it needs to do two more crucial things. It has to be able to grow, and it has to be able to make copies of itself. Now, cells have two different ways of dividing for two very different reasons. The first is called mitosis. This is for growth and repair. You can think of it like a biological copy machine. One cell divides once and makes two perfectly identical daughter cells. But for sexual reproduction, cells use a different process called meiosis. This is a bit more complicated. It involves 2 rounds of division, and the end result is 4 cells that are all genetically different from each other, like sperm and egg. So why go through all that extra trouble? Why make them different? Because meiosis is all about creating genetic variety. It's all about shuffling the genetic deck. It does this in a couple of clever ways, like when chromosomes physically swap pieces of DNA. This random shuffling is the reason why siblings, who get their genes from the same parents, can still look so different from one another. So we've gone from the tiniest atoms all the way up to a cell that can power itself, grow, and multiply. For our last step, let's just pull back and see how all these pieces fit together into one big, beautiful, interconnected system. Here's the first critical link you need to remember. It all kicks off with information. The code written in the DNA blueprint is read, and it's used to build proteins, the physical structures and the actual machines of the cell. So information becomes structure. And that leads to the second critical link. Those very protein structures we just built, especially the ones called enzymes, are what make the whole energy economy run. They are what make metabolism happen. So structure enables energy. So here's the big takeaway from all of this. These 3 things, information, structure, and energy, are not separate. They are a chain, and a fragile one at that. Just think about it. One tiny typo when the DNA is being copied, that could change the shape of a protein. And if that protein is a crucial enzyme, it might not work anymore. And if that enzyme doesn't work, a whole metabolic pathway could shut down, starving the cell of the energy it needs to survive. The accuracy of that initial information is absolutely critical for the whole system. And that leaves us with one last thing to chew on. This entire magnificent structure of life hinges on these delicate connections. So where do you think the weakest link is? Is it in making a perfect copy of the DNA blueprint? Is it in getting that long string of a protein to fold into its exact, perfect 3D shape? Or is it in the final step, when that enzyme actually has to do its job? It's a really fascinating question about just how fragile, and at the same time, how resilient life really is.